I was working from home on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, taking a quick break from my remote healthcare administration duties to sort through the mail. As a senior administrator at Seattle General Hospital, I worked remotely 3 days a week while managing a demanding caseload of patient records and staff schedules. Most of the mail was junk. Catalogs I'd never ordered. Credit card offers with ridiculous interest rates. Hospital newsletters I never read. Then I saw an envelope addressed to Troy Whitmore, my husband. It was marked important, tuition statement enclosed in bold red letters. It was from Phoenix Academy, a private school in Arizona. I assumed it was a mistake or some kind of solicitation. But curiosity won. I opened it carefully. The invoice was for Parker Whitmore, age 7, grade 2. A child I'd never heard of in my entire life. Listed under parent/guardian was Troy Whitmore, my husband's full name. My hands started shaking violently. The paper rattled between my trembling fingers. I read it again slowly. And again. The words didn't change no matter how many times I read them. My husband had a child I didn't know about. In another state. My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. My carefully ordered world began collapsing around me like a house of cards. I abandoned my work completely and sat at my laptop with shaking hands. I typed Parker Whitmore Phoenix into the search bar with trembling fingers. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Nothing useful came up at first. Just random people with similar names. Then I found a youth soccer league website with team photos from last season. I clicked through frantically, my breath catching in my throat. And there he was.
Troy.
My husband of 12 years. Kneeling beside a young boy who looked exactly like him. Same deep brown eyes. Same distinctive strong jawline. Same smile. Troy's arm was wrapped protectively around a woman I'd never seen before in my life. She was blonde.
Pretty.
Smiling radiantly at the camera like she didn't have a care in the world. The caption read, "The Whitmore family cheering on Parker?" It was dated 6 months ago. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing clearly. My husband was in a family photo. With another family. Another complete family. I felt my chest constricting painfully. I couldn't breathe properly. The room started spinning. I minimized the browser and sat in complete silence, staring at nothing at all. My daughter Brooke would be home from school in 2 hours. I had to hold myself together until then somehow. But inside, I was shattering into a million tiny pieces. I was 22 years old when I met Troy, fresh out of college with a healthcare management degree. I was working my first real administrative job at a community clinic downtown. I met Troy at a mutual friend's housewarming party on a warm summer evening. He was charming and confident, working in pharmaceutical sales with big dreams about his future. We dated for 2 wonderful years. He proposed on a beach vacation at sunset, getting down on one knee in the sand. The wedding was beautiful. 200 guests. A gorgeous venue overlooking the water. Happy tears from everyone. I believed I'd found my soulmate. My forever partner. The one person I'd spend my entire life with. He talked constantly about building a life together.
Kids.
A beautiful house with a yard. Growing old side by side. I trusted him completely and absolutely with my whole heart. He was the most devoted man I'd ever known. Everyone said so. My mother, my friends, my colleagues at work. Everyone agreed Troy was perfect. The ideal husband. I remember thinking I was the luckiest woman alive. Blessed beyond measure. I had absolutely no idea I was building a life with a stranger wearing a perfect mask. A mask that would eventually crack and reveal the monster underneath. For years into our marriage, I gave birth to our daughter Brooke. She was perfect and beautiful. I took 3 months of maternity leave, then returned to work. I'd been promoted to department manager at a regional hospital. My career was demanding, but incredibly rewarding. And we needed my income desperately. Troy's pharmaceutical sales job was commission-based. His earnings fluctuated wildly month to month. Some months he made great money. Other months almost nothing at all. I became the reliable breadwinner. The steady paycheck that kept our household running smoothly. I worked long hours, took on extra projects, earned promotion after promotion through hard work. By year 8, I was a senior healthcare administrator earning a substantial six-figure salary. I was proud of what I'd built. I handled the finances, paid the bills, managed our investments wisely. Troy traveled constantly for work, but I trusted him completely. He was working hard too. I was too busy building my career to question anything about his schedule or his trips. I told myself we were a team. I earned the stable income while he pursued commission-based opportunities. I had no idea where my hard-earned money was really going all those years. No idea at all. 8 years into our marriage, Troy's travel schedule became increasingly erratic and unpredictable. Sometimes he was gone for 10 days straight with minimal contact. Just a few texts here and there. He always had reasonable explanations. Important conferences, intensive training programs, high-value client visits in distant cities. He brought back small gifts from airports, magnets,
Keychains.
shot glasses with city names printed on them. Brooke collected them proudly in her room on a special shelf. I noticed small inconsistencies that nagged at me subconsciously late at night. He mentioned a specific restaurant in Phoenix, but claimed he was in Denver that week when I asked. He received calls late at night and stepped outside to answer them privately in the cold. He showered immediately after returning from trips. Before even hugging Brooke hello, Fiona pushed the troubling thoughts away firmly. Marriage required trust above all else. But a small persistent voice in my head wouldn't stop whispering insistently. Something is wrong. Something doesn't add up here. I ignored it completely. For years, I systematically ignored every single warning sign. I was too trusting, too naive, too busy to see what was right in front of me. 10 years into our marriage, I noticed our savings weren't growing like they should be. I was making more money than ever, getting substantial raises, earning bonuses, but our account stayed flat. I mentioned it to Troy casually over dinner one evening. "Where's all our money going?" He waved it off dismissively without even looking up from his plate. Cost of living keeps rising every year. My commissions have been unpredictable lately. We're doing fine overall. I accepted this explanation readily. Too readily. I was too exhausted from work to dig deeper into the actual numbers and bank statements. I handled daily expenses and routine bills. Troy managed the investment accounts and larger financial decisions. He insisted this division of labor was more efficient. I believed him. But I also noticed he'd bought expensive new golf clubs, new designer luggage, a premium watch. I didn't question it specifically. Maybe his commissions were better than he'd mentioned to me. I was working 60 hours a week saving lives through healthcare administration, helping people, making a difference. I didn't have energy left to audit my husband's spending habits in detail. I'll later realize this was exactly what he counted on all along. My exhaustion.
My trust.
My distraction. I sat in my dark living room after Brooke went to bed that night, unable to sleep at all. I stared at the soccer photo on my phone, studying every single pixel obsessively. The woman's name was Simone. I discovered it through extensive online searching and social media stalking. Simone Whitmore. She used Troy's last name openly on everything. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They appeared to be married. Actually married. I searched more frantically and found an old announcement in a Nevada newspaper archive buried deep online. A wedding notice from 4 years ago. Troy Whitmore and Simone Renner. Married in a small, intimate ceremony. I felt my blood turn to ice in my veins. I was already married to Troy at that time. We'd been married for 8 years when he married another woman. He committed bigamy, an actual felony, a serious crime. My husband was a criminal, a liar, a fraud. I put the phone down slowly and stared at the ceiling until dawn broke through the windows. I felt nothing at first. Then overwhelming grief crashed over me. Then burning rage. Then ice-cold calculation. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I was going to plan. I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I couldn't function normally at all. I wanted to scream, to throw things, To drive to the airport and fly to Phoenix and confront this Simone person directly. To call Troy and unleash 12 years of betrayed fury all at once. But I didn't do any of that impulsive nonsense. Something cold and calculating took over my shattered mind completely. If I confronted Troy now, unprepared, he'd spin it. He'd lie convincingly like he always did. He'd manipulate the situation. He'd make me feel crazy and paranoid like he always did when I questioned anything.
No.
I needed proof. Undeniable, comprehensive, legal proof. I needed documentation that would hold up in court against any lawyer. I needed to protect myself and Brooke legally before he knew I knew anything at all. I picked up my phone and searched for private investigators in Seattle with good reviews. I found one with excellent reviews and impressive credentials. A woman. I sent an email at 3 a.m. I need help urgently. I think my husband has another family in another state. I hit send before I could reconsider or talk myself out of it. Then I made coffee and began planning my next moves carefully. I met the private investigator at a quiet coffee shop far from my neighborhood where nobody knew me. Her name was Diana Russo. She was professional, calm, and completely unsurprised by my story. "You'd be amazed how common this actually is," she said matter-of-factly, stirring her coffee. I provided everything I had. Troy's detailed travel patterns, the damning tuition invoice, the soccer photo, the Nevada wedding announcement. Diana took careful notes and asked probing questions about his schedule and habits. "I'll need approximately 3 weeks," she said. "We'll document everything thoroughly. Photos, videos, financial connections, detailed travel records, property ownership, the complete picture. When I'm done, you'll have an absolutely airtight case that no lawyer can challenge." I paid the substantial retainer with money from a secret savings account I'd opened last week using only my own earnings. I hadn't told anyone about any of this yet. Not my mother. Not my sister. Not my best friend. I was completely alone with this devastating knowledge. But I was also completely focused and determined. I went home and smiled warmly at Troy when he arrived that evening. He kissed my cheek affectionately. "How was your day, babe?" I didn't flinch.
Great.
"Dinner's almost ready." I was already learning to act convincingly. The next 3 weeks were absolute torture for me mentally and emotionally. I worked from home and the hospital, maintained perfect normalcy, and waited anxiously for Diana's updates. Troy came and went as usual, completely oblivious to everything. He had no idea I knew anything. He told me about a conference in Dallas that was actually a week in Phoenix with his other family. I knew because Diana was tracking his every single movement with GPS and surveillance. He FaceTimed Brooke from his hotel room, pretending to be alone and missing us terribly. Meanwhile, Diana's detailed updates arrived regularly via encrypted email throughout each day. Photos of Troy walking into the Phoenix house carrying groceries, holding Parker's hand lovingly at a neighborhood park, kissing Simone goodbye passionately in the driveway before leaving for the airport. Each image was another knife stabbed directly into my heart. I cried alone in my bathroom with the shower running to mask the sounds of my sobbing. I studied Troy's face carefully when he was home, searching desperately for guilt or discomfort. There was nothing. He was completely relaxed, affectionate, normal,
Perfect.
He asked about Brooke's school enthusiastically. He complimented my cooking. He made love to me like nothing was wrong. He was absolutely flawless in his deception. That's when I realized the truth. I'd been married to a sociopath for 12 years. Diana delivered the comprehensive financial report to my email. I opened it with shaking hands. It was devastating beyond anything I'd imagined in my worst nightmares. Troy had been siphoning nearly 40% of our joint income into hidden accounts for the past 6 years. Mortgage payments for the Phoenix house, a beautiful 4-bedroom home with a pool, private school tuition for Parker at an expensive academy, a new SUV payment for Simone, family vacations I never knew existed to places I'd never been, all funded primarily by my substantial salary and annual bonuses from the hospital. I stared at the damning numbers, feeling physically sick to my stomach. I thought we were comfortable, but not building wealth like we should. Now I knew exactly why. Every budget I stretched thin. Every vacation I skipped or cut short for work. Every raise I negotiated and earned through hard work. Every 60-hour week I endured. Every sacrifice I made. All of it funded his other life. His other family. His other wife. I was the unknowing financial engine of my own betrayal and humiliation. The rage built slowly inside me, quietly, dangerously like a volcano. But I kept it carefully buried beneath a calm exterior. Not yet. The timing isn't right yet. I met with a divorce attorney named Patricia Callahan, who specialized in complex fraud cases. She came highly recommended by Diana, who worked with her often. I brought Diana's complete file. Photos. Financial records. The damning bigamy evidence. Property ownership documents. Patricia reviewed everything with increasingly wide eyes over 2 full hours. This is one of the most thoroughly documented cases of marital fraud I've ever seen in 20 years of practice, she said, clearly impressed. She explained my extensive options carefully and methodically. Because the second marriage was illegal, Simone wasn't technically a legal spouse with any rights. I was Troy's only legal wife. I had rights to everything, including assets he tried to hide. Patricia recommended freezing accounts, documenting all remaining assets, preparing comprehensive custody paperwork. We can absolutely destroy him legally, Patricia said calmly. But timing matters tremendously. What exactly do you want? I thought carefully before answering. I want him to lose everything.
His job.
His reputation. His control over both families. I want both women to know the complete truth at the same moment. And I want it to happen publicly where he can't spin it. Patricia smiled slowly. Then we wait for the perfect moment. Troy came home 2 weeks later with expensive champagne and an enormous grin on his face. He'd been promoted to regional vice president, a position he'd chased for years. There was going to be a major celebration, a lavish formal dinner event at a downtown luxury hotel. Colleagues from multiple regional offices would attend together, including key people from the Phoenix territory who'd never visited Seattle before. Troy was absolutely beaming with pride and excitement. This is everything I've worked for my whole career. I smiled warmly and hugged him tight. I'm so incredibly proud of you, honey. Inside, my mind was racing with calculations and possibilities. The Phoenix office. His Arizona colleagues. People who might know Simone personally. People who might know about his other life there. People from both worlds in the same room for the first time ever. This is it. This is the perfect moment I've been waiting for. I texted Patricia that night. I know when and where. I texted Diana. I need final confirmation that Simone doesn't know about me. Diana confirmed within 48 hours. Simone believed Troy was long divorced from a previous marriage. She had absolutely no idea I existed or that she wasn't legally married.
Perfect.
Both carefully separated lives were about to collide catastrophically. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing meticulously for the confrontation ahead. I reviewed every document repeatedly with Patricia until I had them memorized. I memorized key facts, dates, and figures. I couldn't afford to stumble or forget anything. I purchased a new dress for the celebration. Something confident, powerful, elegant, red. I arranged for Brooke to stay with my mother that entire night. Mommy has an important work event. I rehearsed exactly what I'd say in front of my mirror, timing every pause perfectly. I didn't want to scream or cry or appear hysterical. I wanted to be calm.
Controlled.
Absolutely devastating. I looked at myself in the mirror the night before. I barely recognized the woman staring back. 12 years ago, I was a naive young woman who believed completely in love and trust. Now I was someone else entirely. Someone forged in devastating betrayal. Someone who refused to be a victim any longer. I practiced my speech until it was perfectly polished. Until my voice didn't shake at all. Until I felt nothing but cold determination and righteous anger. Tomorrow night, everything would change forever. The celebration was at a luxury hotel downtown with stunning views of the city skyline. I arrived looking absolutely stunning in my new red dress. I'd had my hair and makeup done professionally. Troy introduced me to colleagues proudly. My beautiful, successful wife. She's a senior administrator at Seattle General. I smiled graciously, shook hands warmly, made charming small talk about the weather and the city. I scanned the room carefully for Phoenix people. I spotted a group by the bar. Troy's Arizona team, easily identified by their conversation about desert heat and cactuses. I wondered if any of them had met Simone personally, if they'd been inside his other house. The thought made me physically sick, but I showed nothing on my face. I watched Troy work the room masterfully. Charming, confident, universally beloved. Everyone genuinely loved him. That was about to change forever in the next hour. I checked my phone discreetly. Patricia was waiting on standby in the lobby downstairs. Diana had couriered the final comprehensive report to the hotel's front desk earlier. Everything was perfectly in place like chess pieces. I ordered a drink I wouldn't finish, and I waited patiently for the speeches to begin. Troy's boss, the company's CEO, took the stage to warm applause from everyone. He gave a glowing speech about Troy's accomplishments and character over the years. His dedication, his integrity, his exceptional people skills and sales numbers. A man who builds everything he touches. A man we're proud to promote to leadership. The room applauded enthusiastically. I clapped politely, my expression pleasant and supportive. Troy was called to the stage to say a few words of gratitude. He thanked his team emotionally, his dedicated colleagues, his loyal family, especially my wife Fiona, who has supported me through absolutely everything. I couldn't have done any of this without her. He raised his champagne glass toward me meaningfully across the room. The room turned to look at me admiringly. I smiled graciously. Inside, I was counting down the seconds until it was my turn. When Troy finished speaking to sustained applause, I stood slowly and deliberately. Actually, I'd like to say a few words as well, if I may. The room murmured with surprised approval. How sweet. Troy looked surprised but nodded graciously, pleased. I walked toward the front of the room deliberately. My heels clicked on the polished floor with each step. The room went completely quiet. Everyone was watching me expectantly. I reached the microphone and adjusted it slightly. I spoke calmly into the microphone. My voice was steady and clear. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate my husband's well-deserved promotion. I've been married to Troy for 12 years. We have a beautiful 9-year-old daughter together named Brooke. I paused deliberately, letting the tension build naturally. But I recently learned something that I think everyone in this room deserves to know. Another pause. The room was perfectly silent now. You could hear a pin drop. 4 years ago, while still married to me, Troy married another woman named Simone in Nevada. They have a 7-year-old son named Parker together. He's been living 2 complete, separate lives. One here in Seattle with me, one in Phoenix with them. He's a bigamist. He's been systematically funneling our family's income, money I earned working 60-hour weeks, into his other household for years. I held up the thick folder for everyone to see clearly. The room was dead silent. Troy's face had turned completely white like a ghost. His boss stared at him with dawning horror and disgust. Colleagues looked between us in shock. Someone gasped audibly. I continued calmly. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. And I wanted everyone here to know exactly what kind of man you're celebrating tonight. I set the folder on the nearest table deliberately. Thank you all for your time and attention. The room erupted into absolute chaos immediately. Troy tried to speak but couldn't form coherent words. His mouth opened and closed uselessly. His boss pulled him aside roughly, his face thunderous with rage. HR executives huddled urgently, whispering intensely and looking at their phones. People were whispering everywhere, staring, pulling out phones to record or text. I walked calmly toward the exit, my head held high and proud. Troy chased after me desperately. Fiona, wait. Please let me explain. I stopped and turned to face him directly for the last time. Explain what exactly? That you had a second wife? A second child? That you stole from our family for years to build another one? that my salary paid for their house. He stammered helplessly. It's not. You don't understand the whole situation. I understand perfectly, I said coldly. You got caught. Finally. I turned and walked away without looking back at him. He didn't follow me this time. He just stood there. I stepped outside into the cold night air and took my first deep breath in months. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from overwhelming relief. It's done. It's finally done. I'm free. The next morning, Troy was terminated from his position immediately for conduct unbecoming of a company representative. The company didn't want any association with the scandal at all. He called me 47 times throughout the day. I didn't answer once. He left voicemails. Angry, then pleading, then threatening, then sobbing pathetically. I saved every single one as evidence for court. Patricia called with updates throughout the day. The bigamy case had been officially referred to prosecutors in both states. It was a felony that could result in prison time. Diana confirmed that news had reached Simone in Phoenix. She'd called the investigator's office completely hysterical, demanding answers about everything. She had absolutely no idea I existed. No idea she wasn't legally married. Her entire life with Troy was built on carefully constructed lies just like mine was. I felt a strange, unexpected sympathy for her. We were both victims of the same predator. But only one of us saw the destruction coming in time to prepare properly. Only one of us had documentation and lawyers ready. Only one of us would walk away with anything. My phone rang late that evening. Unknown number with an Arizona area code. I answered cautiously. Hello. It was Simone. Her voice was completely broken, tearful, barely coherent through the sobbing. Is it true? All of it? Everything? I told her everything calmly. The complete timeline. The overwhelming evidence. The 12 years of marriage that preceded her relationship. Simone was sobbing uncontrollably on the other end. He told me he was divorced years ago. He said his ex-wife was mentally unstable and had moved far away. I believed every word. I never questioned anything. I listened patiently. I believed him too.
Completely.
For 12 years. We talked for almost 2 hours. Two women who loved the same liar with all their hearts. Who built entire lives around his elaborate deception. Who raised his children without knowing about each other. By the end, Simone said firmly through her tears, I want to destroy him too. Legally.
Completely.
For what he did to both of us. I gave her Patricia's number immediately. Call my attorney first thing tomorrow. Let's do this together. I hung up feeling something unexpected.
Solidarity.
Both of us were used mercilessly. But together, we'd make absolutely sure Troy lost everything he ever valued. Patricia filed the divorce papers the next morning at the courthouse. I requested full custody of Brooke, the family home, all retirement accounts, and the overwhelming majority of marital assets. Given the documented bigamy, systematic fraud, and years of financial deception, the court was extremely sympathetic to my position. Troy's assets were completely frozen pending the criminal investigation. He couldn't access any of his hidden accounts. He was living on a friend's couch, unemployable, and radioactive in his industry. His reputation was utterly destroyed. The story had spread rapidly through professional networks and social media. No company would touch him.
He was toxic.
Meanwhile, Simone filed her own comprehensive legal action in Arizona. She was suing Troy for fraud, seeking full custody of Parker, and demanding compensation for years of deception. The two women coordinated their legal strategies through Patricia. Troy was being legally demolished from 2 directions simultaneously with no escape route. He called me again and again, begging for mercy.
Crying.
Pleading. I blocked his number permanently. He'd shown me no mercy for 12 years. I'd show him none now. The district attorney's office formally charged Troy with bigamy in both states. It was a Class C felony. He faced up to 5 years in prison if convicted. The news made local and national headlines everywhere. Sales executive charged with maintaining 2 secret families across state lines. The story went viral on social media. Thousands of shares and comments. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out with shock and support. My mother cried when she finally learned the full truth from me. My sister was absolutely furious and wanted to confront Troy personally. I told her not to. But mostly, people were amazed by the audacity. How did he manage it logistically? They asked constantly. How did you not know for so long? I'd asked myself the same painful question hundreds of times already. But I'd stopped blaming myself completely now. I trusted my husband. That's not a crime. That's what marriage means.
Trust.
He exploited that trust systematically. That's the crime. The court date was set for 3 months out. I would testify. So would Simone. Troy's carefully constructed world was closing in from all directions. There was no escape for him now. Troy's criminal trial was brief, but absolutely devastating for him. Facing overwhelming evidence, he pleaded guilty to avoid a potentially longer sentence. The judge was harsh and unsparing in her comments from the bench. You built 2 complete families on elaborate lies. You exploited 2 trusting women financially and emotionally. You fathered children in 2 states and deceived everyone who loved you for years. Troy was sentenced to 18 months in prison plus extended probation and mandatory restitution. He looked completely broken in his orange jumpsuit, a shell of the confident man he once appeared to be. I watched from the gallery, my face impassive and calm. I didn't feel victorious or celebratory. I felt tired, finished, but also genuinely free for the first time in years. After the sentencing, reporters approached me outside on the courthouse steps. I gave one brief statement. I'm just glad my daughter will eventually understand the truth. That's all I ever wanted. I walked away without looking back at the courthouse behind me. Troy was led away in handcuffs to begin his sentence. I didn't watch him go. He was already gone from my life. 6 months later, my life looked completely different in every way. The divorce was finalized while Troy remained incarcerated. I received everything I requested. Full custody of Brooke, the Seattle house, retirement accounts, 70% of remaining marital assets. I'd been promoted at work to Vice President of Healthcare Administration. A huge achievement. Brooke was thriving in therapy and doing well in school despite everything. We'd completely redecorated the house together. New paint colors, new furniture, new happy memories being created. I'd started dating again very cautiously. Nothing serious yet. I'd joined a support group for women who survived similar betrayals. I'd made genuine friends who truly understood. One evening, I received a handwritten letter from Troy at the prison. He was requesting parole soon. He wanted to see Brooke. He said he was genuinely sorry and had changed. He claimed he understood now what he'd done wrong. I read it once carefully, then threw it in the garbage without hesitation. I'd let Brooke decide about contact when she was much older and could truly understand. But I myself was completely done. He didn't get access to my life anymore.
Not my time.
Not my energy. Not my forgiveness. Not ever again. I didn't destroy my husband's life. He built his own destruction meticulously, one lie at a time, over years. I just stopped protecting him from the inevitable consequences of his choices. For 12 years, I trusted him completely. I worked exhausting hours to support our family, financially. I built a successful career and a stable home while he lived a fantasy life in another state funded by my hard work. He took my money,
My time.
my faith in love and partnership. He took years I'll never get back. But he didn't take my dignity. That's what I protected. That's what I ultimately saved. When I stood in front of that room and told the simple truth, I wasn't seeking revenge. I was refusing to be complicit in lies anymore. I was refusing to let him control the narrative any longer. The revenge came naturally, because elaborate lies always collapse eventually under their own weight. People ask if I regret how publicly I exposed him. I don't. Not for 1 second. He humiliated me privately for 12 years through a secret betrayal. One public moment of truth was nothing compared to that sustained deception. I don't hate Troy anymore. I don't think about him much at all these days. He's a closed chapter in a book I'm no longer reading. I've written new chapters since then. Much better ones. My daughter knows her mother is strong and honest. That's the only legacy I care about now. Not what he did to us. What I did after. I survived his betrayal. I rebuilt our lives. I won. Not by destroying him. By saving myself and my daughter. By choosing truth over comfortable lies. By refusing to be anyone's victim ever again.